What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports here on the USC channel at the Voice of College Football. The 2023 schedules were just revealed for the Pac-12. We're going to take a look at USC's schedule. Definitely some things that jump out to me when you take a look at this schedule. Before we get to 2023, let's look back at 2022. Here was the USC schedule from 2022. They played Rice and Fresno State, and then of course Notre Dame in the non-conference. You saw a schedule that it wasn't too horrible. They didn't play Oregon, they didn't play Washington, so it wound up being a pretty favorable schedule for them. They didn't have, well, they had the Utah, Arizona back-to-back road games there, but other than that, no other, no real tough stretches. It was a very favorable schedule for USC in 2022. Perhaps a big reason why they went 11-1. They did close things out though with UCLA on the road and then Notre Dame, a couple of games there at the end, and that's definitely something that I took away from the 2023 schedule. They have a tough finish as well. We'll show you that in just a second. Here is the non-conference schedule, or the teams that they play in the non-conference this year: San Jose State, Nevada, and on the road at Notre Dame. So of course they play Notre Dame every year, and then they'll have a couple of easier games there with a group of 5 teams out of the Mountain West. So let's go week by week now. Here is the full schedule, and the first thing that jumps out, it's the fact that they play a week 0 game. They will play San Jose State on August the 26th, so they will have that week 0 game, which is going to give them 2 bye weeks, and one of their bye weeks will come at the very end of the season. So the Saturday that is normally a rivalry weekend that weekend before the conference championship games, they will have a bye week there, which is interesting. They'll play Nevada on September the 2nd. Then they'll jump into Pac-12 play with Stanford on September 9th. Seems like they always play Stanford early in the year. After that, they'll have their first bye week. So they'll get a bye week there after those first 3 games, and then again they'll have really technically a bye week at the end of the season before potentially the Pac-12 championship game. So Stanford there, then the bye week, then they will play Arizona State on September 23rd on the road, and it's going to be back-to-back road games here. They'll play Arizona State, then Colorado on the road. It's a lot better than having to play Washington and Utah, or Oregon and Utah, or something like that back-to-back on the road, but still, it's tough to do back-to-back road games. Arizona State and Colorado, though, definitely games that USC should be favored in. Of course, with Colorado, we don't know what that team is really going to look like with Deion Sanders taking over. A lot of new faces, a lot of guys coming over in the transfer portal, so that'll be an interesting game there for sure. But back-to-back road games there, and then they'll play Arizona on either October the 7th or the 6th. The schedule says that could be a Friday or Saturday game. Not really sure when they determine that, but either on that Friday or Saturday they will play Arizona at home, and then they get into the meat of the schedule. And that second half, it is tough. I mean, this is a very tough finish to the season. That first half, those first 6 games, they look pretty good. All games that USC is going to be favored in, and probably favored by a lot in all 6 of those games. But then you get to the rest of the schedule, it's going to be tough, and it starts there with Notre Dame on October the 14th. They will play them on the road. Notre Dame is expected to be potentially a top 10 team this year, so that'll be a huge showdown there. And then they follow that up. The next week they'll play Utah. They get them at home this time, but we know Utah, of course, beat USC twice last year. That'll be a very tough game. Cam Rising is coming back, and so you've got back-to-back very tough games there, Notre Dame and Utah. Maybe a little bit of a break there on October 28th, but it is a road game against Cal, so that's not going to be a game that they just show up and win by 40. I mean, they're going to have to be ready for that one as well. Really no weeks off once they get to that Notre Dame game. But Cal on the road, again, having to play them on the road does make it a little bit tougher. And then you look at the way they finish here. Washington at home, a Washington team that I've seen ranked in the top 5 or 6 in some way too early top 25s. This is a team of Michael Penix coming back. They're going to be very good. That will be a challenge for sure. Good news is it is a home game, but then after that they'll play Oregon on the road. That also will be a very tough game. Bo Nix coming back, so you're talking about having to go against Michael Penix and Bo Nix, 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks more than likely in the Pac-12 next year, besides Caleb Williams. So that's going to be a very tough test there. And then, of course, the rivalry game at the end against UCLA. At home for USC, a game that they probably will be favored in, but not going to be an easy one. And so again, you just look at this schedule. The first half, it's pretty easy. I mean, it is a very favorable schedule, but then that second half, I mean, they really loaded up the back end for USC. Again, you're talking about in the final 6 games playing Notre Dame, Utah, Washington, Oregon, and UCLA. So a very tough finish to the schedule. If you look at the big picture and you look at this total schedule, you can say, well, it's not that bad. But again, when you look at that second half, that is a very, very tough second half of the season. If you just maybe compared, we'll get all the schedules out, of course, and maybe just looking at who has the toughest last 6 games, I think USC is going to have an argument to possibly have the toughest 6 games to close out the season, because that's where it's going to really get tough for them. So overall, a schedule I think that is a good bit tougher than the one that they had in 2022.